I know that the Democratic representatives, the party itself, they, as I mentioned earlier, they don't respect blacks. They think that blacks are not capable enough to do it for themselves. So they offer them affirmative action and reparations and things like that. They think that the blacks can't take care of themselves, so they're lowering the standards in order to get into a white university. They're now telling the blacks that they don't have to take the test because they can't pass the white man's test. They think that the blacks, rather than having a father and mother in the home, they offer them government. They don't believe that the blacks are capable. And what I don't understand about that, and since you're involved in strategizing for them, what I don't understand, why do the blacks accept themselves being treated that way?
What's going on, everyone? It's also Kenny here. Today we're reacting to a video with Jesse. To be honest with you guys, it's a kind of somewhat of an interesting conversation because yesterday I did a video and I've been getting a lot of pushback, kind of like people are saying I'm overanalyzing systemic racism, and I'm here asking for proof. And one thing I notice about a lot of people who vote Democrat or who are liberal is when you're skeptical of their position, for some reason they feel very uncomfortable, very offended when people do that. And that's one thing I notice, right? If I ask a Democrat questions about policies, I'm like, hey, your intentions say you're trying to help black people, but here's the result. War on poverty actually did more harm to the black community than good. The black community was at 25% single motherhood. You introduce your war on poverty, it jumped to 75%. And there's stats showing that single parent households are more susceptible to poverty than married households. So could I make the argument that your democratic policies has incentivized the black community or communities as a general whole, like you incentivize women to put themselves in bad situations? Can you really objectively say that's a good policy? No, you cannot. That is the conservative argument. Those are some of the arguments that conservatives like me make, and what Jesse Lee Peterson makes here. And he's asking, he's like, yo, like, why you want to be treated this way? Why you want to be dependent on our government? My saying has always been that if someone's responsible for you, they have authority over you. So if the government is responsible for your welfare, right, your housing, your food, your health care, they have authority over you. In the UK, there was a story. I mention this example all the time. In the UK, there's a story where a child was, by the government said, hey, there's no point in trying to save him, unplug him. He was brain dead. And the parents was fighting desperately to keep him alive. They wanted to transfer him to Italy so they didn't want to give up hope that their son, pretty much to kill off their son. The government, and in the UK, they're responsible for your healthcare there. There's like, yo, he's not going to make it out anyway. There's no point in keeping him alive. And the parents had to go to court to try to fight to keep the child alive. They already unplugged the child and he died. This is what happened when a government has authority over you. This is what happened when a government is responsible for your welfare. They have authority over your welfare. They can make rules and standards for you. Oh, you're too old. We don't want to give you health care. What you gonna say? You have no skin in the game, so you have no say. And this is the problem that, as a black conservative, that scares me. Because at the end of the day, conservatives in general think government do nothing for me. Government, get out of my way. Government, just be the ref. Make sure everyone's following the same standards, and that's it. We don't want to give special treatment to one group of people over another. Oh, we're trying to balance the scale. And I think it's this narrative that the liberals has put on the black community, this learned helplessness. Like, hey, you can't do nothing for yourself. And time after time, black conservatives come out and prove that, hey, you can be successful in this country. And what they do to minimize your success, oh, you're just an exception. Oh, you got lucky, you never experienced racism. Like, what? Isn't it also race? Like, just like a lot of people in my comment section that disagree with my stance on my black experience video, the same assumption that I make, you claim that I make anyway. But in the video, I said racism is a personal thing. It's not systematic. It's not structural. It's a personal thing. That means if you're around a bunch of racist people on blue states, you're going to experience racism. But hey, I digress. Let's look at this next clip. She's going to be giving pushback to what Jesse Lee Peterson was saying, and she's talking about how a lot of the policies that Jesse had a problem with, she claimed that they are used to balance the scale. Let's take a look.
They're lowering the whole, even to get in certain jobs and things, they're lowering the standards for the blacks so that they can get it. Otherwise, they won't get it. I don't understand why the blacks put up with that.
There's those type of things are just kind of balancing the scales from things that happened decades before. So as you know, slavery happened. It wasn't that long ago, as you know.
Over 150 years ago.
And my mother, not my grandmother, my mom went to a segregated school. So it's not that long ago.
I did too.
Okay, so you understand. It's not like this is distant.
But blacks were better off then. They didn't beg, they didn't blame.
Let's see. So back in after World War II, there was a period in the United States, about 20 to 30 years, where when people came back from the war, they were given home loans that they had no interest or didn't even have to pay back. They were given cars, they were given free college education, they were given all of these things that purposely excluded black people. So there was a time in this country where white people got handouts, but we didn't call it that. Back at the time, the GI Bill, all of those funds, we didn't call it a handout, we called it an opportunity.
I have a problem with her saying that the GI Bill is like some type of handout. Like, I know a lot of black men in my school when we grew up from the hood and stuff, and they felt like, hey, I go to the military, I get all these perks, right? It's a common thing in the hood. Like, a lot of guys, when they don't know what they want to do, just go to the military to get all the benefits, right? But they have to serve about 4 years, depending on how long they stay. They get a subsequent GI Bill, and the end of the day, it's not a handout because they did something for it. They gave service to the military. And some of the points I wanted to kind of counter was that after World War II, everyone, obviously all the men came back. Veterans still get favorable loans even today. And the fact that, not a lot of black people, can I also make the argument not a lot of black people wanted to be in the military? Right? And I hate this assumption that we always have it that in the past that all the states was racist. No, it wasn't. There was the northern free states. There were black people doing well in the northern states. It was the South that was mostly the racist problem, right? The Democrats founded the KKK, right? Northern Democrats, Southern Democrats, they wanted to institutionalize slavery. But that's not history that black people seem to be taught. It seemed like black people only taught, the furthest black person is taught is about 18-something slavery. And then they jumped the in-between part where Democrats were doing all their mess to 1960. That's where I noticed public education like to focus on their history. And then when I come out here and say, hey, 1920s, there was Black Wall Street. Black people used to vote overwhelmingly Republican. We were prosperous and successful. What Jesse Lee Peterson was talking about from a social point of view, socially, black people were better in the past than they are today. Socially, we were poorer than people in 2020, black people in 2023. But we didn't have as much high as a crime. No one was scared of getting robbed, killed. The safest place you could be in was in the black community. Now it's a reverse. Why? The culture changed. And I think that's what Jesse Lee Peterson was trying to point out to her. That the incentives cause our culture to denigrate to where it is at today. This idea that, white man's on your neck. Like she's piggybacking on the struggle of her mother. All I ask is, hey, what struggle you went through personally? And there is personal struggle. Everyone goes through struggle. It's not something exclusively black. Everyone goes through struggle. But the fact that I have to say that, like, that's not an assumption. Like, I have it harder than you. I'm a black person. How I know that? How I know you're not Bronny James? You grew up in a $1 million house. Just because you're black, I'm supposed to assume that you had it harder than a white kid in the same position? Get out of here. No, I don't believe that. But hey, I digress. Here, you're gonna get a little back and forth between the two, and then I'll wrap up my final thoughts after this clip. Let's take a look.
And when people look back on that time, a lot of white people, as a very happy time because they got a leg up in the country. They got a fresh start. They got the money and the support that they needed to build the generational wealth that they have today. And black people didn't have access to it. They were literally purposely excluded because of racism, because of Jim Crow, because of all of these things that purposely left us out and did not give us access to the same type of help that white people did.
Where did you get that information from? Because it's not true. Where did you get that from?
The GI Bill, you should look it up.
I know black men who went to the military, they got the GI Bill too. It wasn't just the white. I have family members who went to the military, they got the GI Bill. Yeah. When they got out, they were able to go to school and they were able to purchase.
But a lot of them were excluded.
They were able to purchase a home and things like that. And they were black, right? So I'm trying to figure out where you get that information from because it's not true.
It's just true. We can agree to disagree, but
I
it is a fact.
I grew up in Alabama when the Jim Crow law existed, and that what you said wasn't true.
Yeah, my family
black
grew up
people
in
were
Texas.
doing better during the Jim Crow law than they are today because they weren't begging and blaming, and the country didn't have to lower the standards
It's not
to let
lowering
them
the standards.
to let them in.
It's not lowering the standards, it's giving people access. We know right now, literally recently in Texas, there was a job posting that went out where people were sending clone resumes, were same exact resume, you just put a black name on it and a white name on it, and the white people were still getting the job or getting called for interviews when the black name wasn't. Like, this is 2023. So, racism exists.
I don't know how many times I have to repeat myself. Racism does exist, but I believe it only affects people at a personal level. So if you meet two black people, one black person is going to experience racism, one's not. And the argument I always hear from these liberals is, oh, there's no way you're actually authentically black if you haven't experienced racism. That's like me saying you can't be authentically black if you didn't grow up in the hood. It's nonsense, right? And this whole name thing, it's easily like, imagine this. Chinese people do that. Chinese people give their kids American names so that way they don't get discriminated against on the job application. Because at the end of the day, names shows assimilation in a way, right? And if you go to watch the full video, Jesse Lee Peterson kind of like hints at this, but the way, to me, Jesse Lee Peterson is not the most articulate person, but I like him. Like, I like where he's coming from, because a lot of black people talk like Jesse Lee Peterson. They just want to admit it. Like, the educated ones, like me and this woman, will be like, oh, they don't make any sense. But where they're coming from is pure. Like, he's just saying, hey, like, I saw black people were able to do for themselves and not having to be dependent on the government, right? Back in the day when welfare was just starting to become a thing in the 1960s, a lot of black people were resistant to welfare. There's a video out there of a black man saying, what? Government giving money? I ain't nobody's pet. They want to treat me like a pet. And you see a bunch of black men laughing about welfare. That's the culture that Jesse Lee Peterson is talking about. That's the culture I want back. Because we tried it 50 years. 50 years, black people have been voting Democrat at a 90% clip. What y'all got out of it? Y'all still complaining about the same problems. The same problems my mom was complaining in 2008, she's still complaining about it in 2023. Except it got worse. Inflation is worse. We're going to go through another recession again. Nothing has changed from 2008 to now. But y'all expect us to keep voting Democrat. And y'all mad that black men are trending towards the Republican Party. Because at the end of the day, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Y'all talking about we're going to hold Democrats accountable. Y'all haven't held Democrats accountable yet. Y'all still haven't done it yet. The closest y'all got to hold Democrats accountable is when Trump got elected. That was the closest. And even then, black people weren't responsible for that. And this is why I say, my whole premise here, to meet me in the middle, is that the black community shouldn't be loyal to the Democratic Party. But when I bring up this point, I get these people, oh, it's both sides. Okay, if it's both sides, why the hell the black people are voting 90% for Democratic Party? Your argument for saying it's both sides, it makes no sense, because the black community is not loyal to the Republican Party. I'm just saying how you treat the Republican Party, you should treat the Democratic Party as well. That's all I'm saying. But people want to bring up that point and act like it's like an actual argument. It's not. You're coping. You're trying to justify why you're still picking a non-effective side or solution. And then all I'm saying is black people need to regain their leverage again, because in 10 years, 15 years from now, I think the black vote won't matter anymore. You see how both parties are already catering to the Hispanic vote. There's a reason for that. The Hispanic vote, you got to fight for their vote. Black community has this stigma, and to me, that's a stigma, that they're loyal to the Democratic Party. So Republicans don't want to compete for your vote, and Democrats don't have to respect your vote. And this is why the black vote is not respected in America. But hey, you can disagree with me, but I'm just saying what I believe to be true. If you have some evidence that counters that, hey, let me know in the comment section. I will be willing to hear it. But hey, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you want to watch the full video, the link is in the description below. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.